The music at the Plaza Hotel's Christmas gala swelled like it was celebrating something holy, but for Marley Whitford it felt like a cruel joke. Golden lights shimmered across the ballroom, catching on the decorated trees, on the crystal glasses, on the diamonds worn by New York's elite. She stood at the edge of it all, one hand instinctively curled over her lower stomach, shielding a truth she had barely begun to accept herself. Before she could breathe, her husband Grant appeared beside her impeccable suit, perfect hair, and eyes colder than the December wind outside. "Come with me," he whispered, gripping her wrist. Not a request, a command. He dragged her across the ballroom, past guests who pretended not to stare. He pushed open a private door, leading them into a dim VIP lounge. The noise outside softened into a muffled hum, but Marley's heart thundered violently in her chest. Grant slid a stack of papers onto the marble table. "Divorce papers. Sign them. Tonight," he said, before the announcement. Marley blinked, stunned. "Tonight? Grant, this isn't why would." He cut her off. "Because you're becoming a problem. You and whatever this is." His eyes flicked to her stomach. "My promotion depends on a clean public image. I don't need a wife who drags me down." Her breath caught, the words slicing through her like glass. She had given him everything, years of love, loyalty, sacrifice, and now he wanted to erase her like she was a stain on his tuxedo. "Grant, please, not here, not tonight." "You'll sign," he said evenly, "or I'll make your life harder than you can imagine." Her hands trembled as she picked up the pen. Tears blurred her vision as she pressed it to paper, signing away her marriage inside a room filled with tinsel and champagne-scented air. When she rose to leave, a small ultrasound photo slipped from her coat pocket and fluttered to the floor unnoticed. Marley stepped back into the crowded ballroom, the lights blinding, the music suffocating. She didn't see the man who bent to pick up the fallen ultrasound, the man whose expression shifted sharply the moment he recognized Grant's name printed at the top. The man was Rowan Blake, the CEO Grant feared most, and he had just discovered Marley's devastating secret. Marley Whitford had spent most of her 28 years believing that love, real love, was something you protected with patience, gentleness, and sacrifice. She didn't grow up with much, just a small rental house in Ohio, a mother who worked double shifts, and a hand-me-down iPhone she used to sketch event layouts on. But she did grow up knowing how to give, how to care, how to make beauty out of nothing. When she moved to New York at 23, carrying 2 suitcases and a dream of designing luxury events, she thought the city might swallow her whole. But she hustled late nights, crafting digital mock-ups on a used MacBook Air, walking miles through Manhattan to shadow senior planners for free. Living on cheap noodles and hope, slowly, painfully, she carved a place for herself in a world of crystal chandeliers and black-tie galas. That was where she met Grant. He'd walked into a charity reception she was designing, all polished confidence and impossible charm. He complimented the lighting, the floral symmetry, even the velvet ribbon she tied around the VIP menus. No man had ever noticed the details like that. Marley had felt seen, truly seen, for the first time. Their romance moved fast. Too fast. But she was young, hungry for stability, and dazzled by the way he treated her like she belonged in those marble rooms. The marriage swept her into a life she had once only set as backgrounds on her phone: dinners on Park Avenue, weekend drives in Grant's Mercedes, holiday trips to the Hamptons. She tried to be the wife he deserved, supportive, warm, endlessly patient. She ironed his shirts before board meetings, packed him lunches when he worked late, and rearranged her schedule so she could attend his corporate functions. And for a while, he softened. He laughed more. He held her hand in public. He even talked about wanting a family someday. But someday never came. The moment Marley told him she was pregnant, unexpectedly, quietly, nervously, something in Grant's expression fractured. He masked it quickly, kissed her forehead, said all the right words. But the distance began that night. Cold silences, canceled dinners, a new phone she wasn't allowed to touch. And then came the cruelty she couldn't explain. The cutting remarks about her job, not being real work. The way he started calling her dramatic when she mentioned feeling alone. The comments about how a baby would complicate everything. Marley tried to hold on. She reminded herself of his early warmth, convinced herself stress was changing him. She blamed her hormones, the city pace, anything other than the truth she wasn't ready to face. But even then, even in her deepest denial, she sensed the shift, and she feared it. Because beneath Grant's handsome exterior was a man who valued power more than people, reputation more than marriage, control more than compassion. She just never imagined he would throw away their vows in a single night, much less at a Christmas gala filled with cameras, colleagues, and the very people who once praised their so-called perfect union. Now, standing alone after signing her marriage away, Marley felt the weight of every sacrifice she ever made pressing against her ribs. The city outside sparkled like a promise she no longer believed in. Her future felt fragile, uncertain, terrifying. What she didn't know, what she couldn't know, was that someone in that ballroom had been watching her long before tonight. Someone who remembered her face from a moment she'd forgotten. Someone who had just found her ultrasound and felt something shift inside him. Someone who was about to change the trajectory of her life forever. The Plaza Hotel at Christmas didn't just glow, it radiated wealth. Light spilled from the massive chandeliers like liquid gold, gleaming across polished marble floors that had witnessed a century of American royalty. Outside, Manhattan snow drifted in slow, dreamy spirals, settling on the horse-drawn carriages waiting along Fifth Avenue. Inside, the ballroom was a symphony of excess. Ice sculptures taller than grown men, champagne fountains spilling over crystal tears, and musicians performing carols on violins worth more than Marley's entire yearly income. This was the world Grant Whitford belonged to, not Marley. She always tried her best to blend in. She wore a simple satin gown in deep emerald, elegant but modest among the couture gowns swirling through the room. She clutched a borrowed clutch. She stood with the posture of someone trying not to take up space. Her eyes were tired, the kind of tired that makeup couldn't hide. She looked like she didn't belong because she didn't. Grant never tried to hide it. Tonight was supposed to be his crowning moment. The Whitford Capitol Christmas Gala was attended by senators, CEOs, media giants, and investors who owned half of Manhattan. For most people, attending this event was a privilege. For Grant, it was an arena, a stage where he performed a version of himself polished to perfection. Marley watched him from the corner of the room, feeling the sting of invisibility. Even before the divorce papers, he had barely acknowledged her tonight. When guests greeted them, Grant would step forward to shake hands, leaving Marley behind like a decorative fixture. She saw the glances women threw her, sympathetic, pitying, amused. They all sensed something was off. And then there was the other woman. Sloane Carver moved through the ballroom like she owned it. Sleek red dress, perfect hair, the kind of confidence that comes from knowing you're the chosen one. Marley had no proof, no confession, no photos, but she felt it. The cold, sharp truth. Sloane didn't try to hide her smiles at Grant, the lingering touches to his arm, the way she placed herself strategically near him. It wasn't paranoia. It was betrayal, dressed in designer heels. The orchestra shifted into a softer melody, guests drifting toward the stage as Grant prepared to begin the annual fundraiser speech. Marley stood near the back, blending with the shadows, feeling smaller by the minute. Her heartbeat echoed in her ears, the ballroom suddenly too bright, too loud, too suffocating. She tried to steady herself, inhaling the scent of pine garlands and expensive cologne. She shouldn't have come tonight. She should have stayed home, curled under blankets, pretending everything was fine. But Grant insisted she attend. He said it would look bad if she didn't show up. Funny how appearances mattered more to him than the wife carrying his child. Her vision blurred for a moment. Stress, nerves, the pregnancy. She pressed a hand against a column, willing her body not to fail her in front of everyone. And then she felt it, not physical pain, but a shift. An awareness. Someone was watching her, but not with disdain, not with pity, with recognition. Across the ballroom, Rowan Blake stood near the bar, tall and composed in a charcoal suit. The CEO whose shadow intimidated half the men in the room. A man Grant hoped to impress. A man Grant feared. He was holding something in his hand. A small, folded piece of glossy paper. Her ultrasound. And he was walking toward her with purpose. Yet Rowan wasn't the only one moving in her direction. Grant had just spotted them, and his face had turned a dangerous shade of white. Grant Whitford had perfected the art of appearing like a man everyone should admire. In public, he radiated confidence, sharp suit, polished charm, the kind of presence that commanded attention the moment he entered a room. People didn't just respect him, they envied him. He had risen quickly in Whitford capital, charming shareholders, negotiating multi-million-dollar deals, and presenting himself as the polished future of the company. But beneath the surface, the truth was far less impressive. Behind the marble lobbies and power lunches, Grant was a man driven by insecurity so deep it could swallow him whole. His success relied on image. Every detail, every headline, every whisper in Manhattan's elite circles needed to paint him as untouchable. And Marley? She was supposed to be the ornament that completed that perfect picture. Beautiful, quiet, devoted, convenient, except she had done something deeply inconvenient. She had gotten pregnant. Grant never wanted a child. Not because he feared responsibility, but because he feared exposure. A baby meant unpredictability, questions, scrutiny. And scrutiny was the one thing he couldn't afford, not with the internal audit quietly circling around Whitford capital. Not with the whispers that someone was funneling charity funds into offshore accounts. Not with his own signature dangerously close to being discovered in places it shouldn't be. If anyone found out Marley was pregnant, it would destroy the persona he had built. Investors wanted stability, not a CFO with a distracted family life. Not someone facing a potential scandal. So the solution, in his mind, was simple. Remove her from the picture before she caused irreversible damage. That was why he forced her into the VIP lounge earlier. That was why he shoved divorce papers at her without hesitation. That was why he didn't flinch when she cried. Her tears were obstacles. Her pain was collateral. He didn't notice when she dropped the ultrasound. He didn't even notice she was shaking. The only thing he noticed was Sloane Carver standing at the edge of the ballroom, giving him a discreet nod. His pulse quickened. Sloane was more than a lover. She was leverage. She had helped him craft the narrative of the perfect executive, had coached him on how to charm the board, had helped him bury smaller mistakes along the way. But Sloane had her own agenda. She always did. Grant didn't see Rowan Blake yet. His eyes were locked on Sloane. She gave a subtle flick of her wrist signal. Confirmation. Assurance that tonight's plan would unfold exactly as they designed. Grant straightened his tuxedo, pulling his shoulders back, preparing to deliver the keynote speech that would secure his bid for CEO. Then his gaze drifted, and he froze. There, across the ballroom, stood Rowan Blake, powerful, calculating, with a reputation for dismantling empires that annoyed him. Rowan held something between his fingers. A glossy print, a medical image, an ultrasound. Grant's heart lurched into his throat. No, 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 not that, not him. He stepped forward, weaving quickly through guests, ignoring greetings, ignoring Sloane calling after him. He couldn't let Rowan speak to Marley. He couldn't let Rowan see her crying. He couldn't let Rowan connect anything, especially not her pregnancy, with him. Because if Rowan knew, everything Grant had built would collapse before dessert was served. Grant quickened his pace, nearly shoving a waiter aside. Rowan reached Marley first. And then Marley looked up, eyes red, breaths unsteady, as Rowan gently handed her the ultrasound and said something Grant couldn't hear. But Sloane could. She had moved closer, lips parting in shock, because Rowan wasn't just holding the ultrasound. He was holding the one secret Grant never intended anyone to uncover. And the look on Rowan's face said he had already put the pieces together. And Grant was about to pay for it. Marley had imagined heartbreak before, quiet, private, something you grieved behind closed doors. But nothing prepared her for the kind that unfolded under chandeliers worth more than her entire yearly salary. The plaza's ballroom buzzed with laughter as guests gathered near the stage, unaware that her world had just shattered in a small, dim lounge only steps away. And now, the humiliation was about to multiply. Rowan Blake stood beside her, the ultrasound still in his hand, his expression unreadable but undeniably concerned. He spoke softly, his voice carrying just enough warmth to make her throat tighten. "You dropped this," he said. "You shouldn't be alone right now." Before Marley could respond, a voice carved through the music like a blade. "There you are, Grant." He pushed through the crowd, the mask of the charming executive slipping into something darker. Several heads turned. Even among the elite, the tension was impossible to miss. Marley instinctively stepped back. Rowan shifted closer, subtle, but enough to show he wasn't walking away. Grant ignored Rowan at first. grabbing Marley's wrist with a grip far too tight for a public place. "What are you doing?" he hissed. "Do you want to ruin everything?" Her breath caught. "Grant, you're hurting me." "Then stop making a scene." A few people looked over. Grant smiled tightly, pretending everything was fine, pretending his wife's pain was an inconvenience rather than the result of his cruelty. Rowan's voice dropped a note, lower, calm, firm, dangerous. "Let go of her." Grant turned slowly, as if realizing only now who he was standing beside. His expression flickered: shock, irritation, fear. "This is a private matter." Rowan didn't blink. "Not when you're manhandling your wife at a charity event." End quote. The word wife landed like a slap, reminding Grant and everyone within earshot that Marley still held a title he couldn't erase with a single signature. Grant released her, but only to adjust his cuffs, pretending he hadn't been caught. "You're misunderstanding. Marley gets emotional." Rowan looked at Marley with an expression that suggested he didn't buy a word of it. Grant reached for the ultrasound, trying to snatch it from Rowan's hand. "That's mine." Rowan didn't move. "It belongs to her." Something crackled in the air, gossip instincts awakening among the wealthy onlookers, cameras subtly lifting, whispers starting to ripple. Grant's smile twisted. "If you think this means anything, it doesn't." She signed the papers. "We're done." The words hit Marley like cold water. Her chest tightened, breath shortening. She hadn't realized anyone could say something that cruel so casually. Rowan's eyes sharpened. "You forced her." Grant scoffed. She agreed. "She knows what's best. A baby would only complicate my future, and frankly," he lowered his voice, "but not enough. We don't even know if it's mine." The room went silent. Marley's vision blurred. The humiliation was total, brutal, public. Her knees weakened, and she swayed, one hand gripping the nearest chair for balance. Rowan caught her arm gently. "That's enough." But Grant wasn't finished. If she wants attention so badly, she should at least admit the truth. He didn't get to finish, because at that exact moment, the ballroom lights dimmed, a spotlight hit the stage, and Sloane Carver stepped up to the microphone, wearing a smile that meant disaster. And in her hand was a phone open to the very video Grant prayed would never see the light of day. The ballroom erupted the moment Sloane lifted her phone. The screen glowed beneath the spotlight, illuminating her perfectly painted smile as she teased the crowd with a sweetness that felt like poison. "Ladies and gentlemen," she purred, "before our beloved CFO gives his keynote, I thought you should see something interesting." Gasps rippled through the room. Grant lunged forward, panic finally ripping through his polished mask. "Sloane, don't." His voice cracked, low and frantic. But Sloane wasn't listening. She had never listened to anyone but herself. Marley couldn't hear the video yet. Her ears rang too loudly, her heartbeat pounding like a trapped animal against her ribs. The humiliation Grant had thrown at her moments earlier replayed in her mind. "We don't even know if it's mine." The words had lodged inside her like shards of glass. She felt herself shrinking, drowning in the weight of it all. The glittering room blurred. The orchestra, the applause, the whispers, they folded into a suffocating haze. "Marley," Rowan said softly beside her, "breathe." But she couldn't. Her lungs refused to open. Every nightmare she feared was unfolding in front of hundreds of New York elites, people who would talk, gossip, judge, dissect her pain over brunch tomorrow. She felt eyes piercing her back, some pitying, some curious, some cruelly entertained. The tears she'd fought all night finally spilled. She stumbled away from Rowan, weaving through the crowd like a ghost in an emerald dress. Her vision streaked with light and shadow, the scent of pine garlands blending into nausea. She needed to leave. She needed air. She needed to not fall apart in front of every billionaire on the East Coast. She reached a quieter hallway, just outside the ballroom, gripping the wall as her knees buckled. Her breath came in shallow, choking bursts. Her hands trembled uncontrollably. Her chest tightened as if a fist were closing around her ribs. For a terrifying moment, she thought she might faint. "Please, not here. Not like this." Tears dripped onto her trembling hands. All the years she spent trying to be the perfect wife, the loyal partner, the quiet supporter, all of it felt worthless now. Grant had discarded her in seconds, like a stain he wanted to wash from his reputation. And worse, she believed him. Some part of her still believed she had failed. Her fingers curled over her stomach. "It's okay," she whispered to the tiny life inside her. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. She wasn't sure how long she sat there, folded against the wall, shaking. Time felt disconnected, broken. Guests drifted in the distance, the music rising again as if nothing catastrophic were happening just steps away. She didn't know if she had the strength to stand. She didn't know anything anymore. Then footsteps approached, slow, controlled, purposeful. For an instant she braced herself, expecting Grant, expecting more venom, more humiliation. But when she looked up, it wasn't Grant. Rowan Blake knelt in front of her, his expression etched with something she hadn't seen in a long time, genuine worry. He held out a handkerchief, but he didn't touch her. He didn't push. He simply stayed there, lowering himself to her level, as if refusing to let her face the dark alone. You're not okay, he said quietly, and you don't have to pretend you are. Marley wiped her eyes with shaking hands. I shouldn't have come tonight. I shouldn't have. You shouldn't be treated the way he treats you. Rowan interrupted softly. For the first time all night, Marley felt her lungs loosen just enough to pull in a breath. But before she could respond, before Rowan could offer another word, a scream erupted from the ballroom, followed by the unmistakable shatter of glass. Then someone shouted Grant's name, and Rowan's eyes sharpened as he realized whatever was happening in that ballroom was about to change everything for all of them. The scream from the ballroom sliced through the hallway like a warning siren. Marley jerked upright, instinct and fear colliding in her chest. Rowan turned sharply toward the door, his posture instantly shifting from gentle concern to the focused alertness of a man used to handling crises. I need to see what's happening, he said quietly. Then he paused, his gaze softening just enough to show he wasn't leaving her behind. Come with me. Stay close. Marley's legs were still trembling, but she nodded. Rowan offered an arm, not touching, just steady, a silent anchor, and she rose slowly, breathing through the remnants of her panic. As they approached the ballroom, the sounds became clearer. Frantic whispers, shattered glass crunching under shoes, the abrupt silence of a crowd holding its breath. When they stepped inside, the atmosphere had transformed entirely. The glamour was still there, shimmering gowns, golden lights, but now it hovered uneasily above a room, thick with tension. At the center of it all stood Grant. His tuxedo jacket was off, his hair disheveled, and his face pale with the kind of fear Marley had never seen on him. Not anger, not arrogance, real fear. In front of him, projected onto the massive ballroom screen behind the stage, played the video Sloane had teased moments earlier, but now there was no teasing. There was only exposure. The audio crackled through the speakers. Grant's voice. His real voice. Cold, calculating, damning. So what if the charity fund is missing a few million? No one checks these things. I'm the golden boy they'd burn before they blamed me. Gasps erupted through the guests. The Whitford board members turned ashen. Senators exchanged horrified looks. But it wasn't over. Another clip replaced the first. Grant laughing with Sloane in what looked like a penthouse suite, champagne in hand, bragging about manipulating financial reports, mocking the board, casually mentioning offshore transfers. Marley's breath caught. She had suspected infidelity. She had sensed cruelty. But crime? Fraud? Lies on this scale? She barely recognized the man on the screen. Sloane stood on stage now, arms crossed, wearing the pleased expression of someone who had waited far too long to watch someone else burn. She didn't look at Grant. She didn't need to. She owned the moment. Grant lunged toward her, face twisted with rage. You set me up, you. Security blocked him before he could reach her. Cameras flashed. People whispered. Someone actually cheered. Marley flinched as Grant's gaze snapped toward her. His eyes ignited not with fear this time, but with blame. As if all of this, every exposed sin, were somehow her fault. He tried to take a step toward her, but security tightened their hold. Rowan moved instinctively, stepping protectively in front of Marley. His voice was calm but laced with steel. Don't even look at her. Grant struggled against the guards. You think you're saving her? He spat. You think you know anything? His chest heaved as he glared at Marley. Tell him the truth about the baby. Marley's blood turned to ice. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Eyes turned toward her, judgment sharpened, cameras lifted. This wasn't humiliation anymore. This was a stage, and she was becoming the centerpiece of Grant's downfall. Rowan glanced at her, just briefly reassuring, grounding, but the moment shattered instantly when a new voice rose from the back of the ballroom. A voice filled with authority and finality. "Grant Whitford," the man said, stepping forward with a badge in hand. "You're coming with us." Marley stared, breath frozen. FBI. Grant's face drained of all color. But as the agents stepped forward, someone else emerged behind them, someone Marley never expected to see again. Someone whose presence made her knees weaken all over again. It was the last person on Earth who should have known about her pregnancy, yet he walked in, holding documents that proved he did. The moment Marley saw the man step forward, her blood ran cold. Dr. Kellen Rhodes, her former OBGYN, the last person she expected to see in a ballroom full of senators and billionaires. The last person who knew anything about her pregnancy besides Grant. He approached calmly, medical folder tucked under one arm, his usual quiet confidence strangely out of place among the chaos of Grant's unraveling life. Marley's throat tightened. Why is he here? How did he know? Rowan instinctively angled himself closer to her, his presence steady, protective. If he sensed her fear, he didn't show it outwardly. Only the subtle shift of his stance revealed he was preparing for anything. Kellen stopped a few feet away, raising his hands slightly as if approaching a frightened bird. "Marley," he said gently, "I'm not here to make things worse." But the room was already whispering. The timing, the files, the familiarity in his voice. It painted a picture far more scandalous than the truth. Grant, red-faced and half-restrained by federal agents, barked out a laugh. "Well, would you look at that? Perfect timing, Doc. Why don't you tell them your little secret?" "Kellen," Marley whispered, voice shaking. "What are you doing?" Kellen exhaled slowly. "I was subpoenaed." That word struck her harder than she expected. Subpoenaed. Not invited. Not coincidentally present. He stepped closer, lowering his voice just enough so only she and Rowan could hear. "They're investigating irregularities in your medical records." Marley felt dizzy. "Irregularities? What?" Rowan's tone sharpened. "What kind of irregularities?" Kellen looked at her with a heaviness she didn't understand yet. "The kind that suggests someone tampered with them." Rowan's jaw tensed. "Grant?" Grant snarled from across the room. "You can't prove anything." And Chalendel. But the agents holding him exchanged glances. They'd heard enough to start asking questions of their own. Kellen continued, "The prosecution requested I bring the untouched originals. They need them for the fraud case." Then he looked directly at Marley, eyes softening. "I didn't know you'd be here, I swear." Marley clutched the wall to steady herself. All she wanted was to disappear, to step outside into the cold air and breathe without everyone's eyes cutting into her. But Rowan placed a steady hand by her elbow, not touching, but close enough to anchor her. "You're not alone," he murmured. Those 3 words nearly broke her all over again. In the ballroom, Sloane watched everything unfold with snake-like satisfaction. She leaned toward the microphone again, her voice gleaming with false sympathy. "It seems tonight's transparency is more than financial." The crowd gasped, hungry for drama. Kellen shot her a glare. "This isn't your stage, Miss Carver. Medical records are confidential." "Oh, please," Sloane smirked, as if confidentiality means anything tonight. But as she spoke, Rowan stepped forward, not loudly, not dramatically, but with the quiet authority of a man used to commanding entire boardrooms. "Turn off the projector," he instructed staff. "End the show." The staff obeyed instantly. Rowan didn't look at Sloane. He didn't look at the crowd. He looked only at Marley, whose trembling hands he finally reached for slowly, carefully, like one wrong move might shatter her. "You need to get out of here," he said gently. "Come with me." Before Marley could respond, one of the FBI agents holding Grant spoke up. "Ma'am, we'll need you to answer some questions regarding your husband's activities." The ballroom went silent again. Every eye in the room shifted to Marley. Rowan's posture changed, sharpening, tightening like a man ready to go to war with an entire federal agency if necessary. Because the agent wasn't just holding a badge, he was holding a warrant. And Marley Whitford's name was printed on it. For a moment, Marley couldn't move. Her name on a federal warrant felt like a punch to the lungs. She stared at the paper in the agent's hand, her thoughts scattering like broken glass. The humiliation she'd endured tonight was crushing enough, but now she was being dragged into Grant's crimes? she whispered, barely audible. I didn't do anything. Grant laughed hysterically from across the ballroom. She knew. Of course she knew. She helped me. His panic twisted into desperation, his voice cracking with each word. Check her accounts, check her messages, she was involved. No, Marley gasped. No, I wasn't. But the room was already swallowing her voice. The crowd leaned in like predators tasting blood. Even those who had pitied her minutes ago now watched her with suspicion, eager for the next twist in the scandal consuming their Christmas gala. Marley felt the floor tilt under her feet. Then Rowan Blake stepped directly between her and the agents. His presence alone changed the temperature of the room. Conversation died instantly. Cameras froze midair. Even the agents straightened, recognizing the CEO whose legal team had crushed opponents far more powerful than Grant Whitford. Before you speak another word, Rowan said to the agent, his voice calm but lethal, you should know that Marley Whitford had no access, financial, contractual, or electronic, to anything related to Whitford Capital. That's not yet proven, Mr. Blake, the agent replied carefully. No, Rowan said. It's already documented. I have now authors availabilis. He reached into his jacket and handed the agent a sealed envelope, heavy, official. The agent opened it, scanning quickly. Whitford Capital Employee Access Log Report. Dated, stamped, verified. Marley's name was nowhere. Rowan continued, your subpoena arrived at my legal department earlier tonight. Since Whitford Capital uses Mercer Group's shared auditing system, the request crossed my desk. My team pulled every access log before you arrived. Marley blinked at him, stunned. He did that? For me? Grant lunged forward, voice rising. She deleted her tracks. She covered herself. Rowan didn't even look at him. She never had the credentials. The agent hesitated. Even so, we need to ask her. You will, Rowan said, with her attorney present. Not here. Not like this. The ballroom buzzed again. Some guests nodded approvingly, others frowned, disappointed the spectacle might end prematurely. Rowan's tone hardened. The woman is pregnant, publicly humiliated, and standing in the middle of a federal arrest involving her husband's crimes. You can question her, but you will not do it in a ballroom full of gossip-hungry strangers with camera phones. Even the orchestra had stopped playing. The agent shifted, then nodded. We can postpone the questioning until morning. Relief washed over Marley so fast her eyes stung. Her knees nearly gave out, but Rowan steadied her with a gentle hand, still, careful not to overwhelm her. Grant screamed, you can't protect her. She betrayed me. Rowan turned his head slowly, finally granting Grant his attention. No, Grant, he said. You betrayed everyone. Grant lunged again, but the agents locked his arms, dragging him toward the exit. His voice cracked in wild desperation as he shouted over the crowd. Marley, tell them the baby isn't. Enough, Rowan snapped, his voice slicing through the room like a blade. And then something unexpected happened. Rowan moved his hand to Marley's back, not possessive, not dramatic, but steady and undeniably protective, and guided her away from the gawking crowd. She felt the warmth of it like a lifeline. But as they stepped toward the hallway, Sloane Carver appeared again, eyes glittering with something far darker than triumph. She blocked their path and whispered, just loud enough for Marley to hear, "Oh, honey, you have no idea what Grant was hiding from you." And then she handed Marley a sealed envelope with her name written on it in Grant's handwriting. Marley stared at the envelope in her hands, as if it were a live wire. Her name was written in Grant's handwriting, sharp, impatient strokes she knew too well. The sight of it made her stomach twist. Nothing Grant ever gave her willingly brought peace. Only control, only fear. Rowan stood beside her, tense, watching Sloane with quiet suspicion. "What is this?" he asked. Sloane smiled, slow and syrupy, a predator savoring the moment. "Insurance," she purred. "Grant's, not mine. He wrote that weeks ago. Told me to give it to Marley if things ever fell apart." "Why would he do that?" Marley whispered. Sloane shrugged. "Grant was always preparing for disaster. He just never expected the disaster to be me." "I do," said. Before Rowan could respond, she turned and strutted away, heels clicking sharply across the marble like punctuation marks in a threat. Marley stood frozen, the envelope suddenly feeling too heavy to hold. Rowan gently touched her elbow. "You don't have to open it right now. but she shook her head. Yes, I do. Her fingers trembled as she broke the seal. A few sheets of paper slid out documents, photocopies, and a handwritten note. The first page made her breath hitch. Paternity report. Her vision blurred. She blinked hard and read the next line. Result. 0% probability of paternity. Grant Whitford is not the biological father. Marley staggered back, hitting the wall behind her. No, she whispered. No, that's not possible. I would never. Rowan stepped in quickly, his voice calm but firm. Marley, look at me. Tears welled in her eyes. I wasn't unfaithful. I swear, I wasn't. I believe you, Rowan said, not just firmly, but with a certainty that caught her breath. She clutched the paper. Then why? Why would he? Rowan took the document, scanning it with a hardened jaw. Because Grant knew something you didn't. Her heart pounded. What? Rowan hesitated just long enough to make her stomach drop. Grant can't have children. The world spun. Marley pressed a hand over her mouth as the implications crashed into her. Grant had known. He had known from the beginning. He had known before she even told him she was pregnant. And instead of admitting the truth, instead of communicating, instead of being human, he turned it into a weapon. Rowan continued, voice low. This paternity report isn't proof that the child isn't his. It's proof that he already knew the child could never be his. He was trying to build a narrative that framed you. Marley felt a sob break loose, raw, wounded, muffled behind her hand. Her entire marriage, every gaslit argument, every cold dismissal, suddenly reorganized into a truth far more vicious than she ever imagined. Rowan stepped closer. He wanted to control the story, make you the villain so when his crimes surfaced, he could shift blame. Her tears spilled freely now, but Rowan didn't look away. He didn't flinch. He didn't judge. He simply stayed, absorbing her pain with a steadiness that made her chest ache. How could he do this to me? She whispered. Because men like Grant only understand power, Rowan replied quietly. Not love. Marley's hands shook so hard she nearly dropped the papers. But then Rowan noticed something, another folded document tucked behind the others. He pulled it free. His eyes widened. This isn't just a paternity report, he said. This is something else. Marley's pulse kicked painfully. What is it? Rowan looked at her slowly, expression darkening. It's a legal transfer form, he said, voice tightening. If signed, it would put you at the center of Grant's financial crimes. This document was his escape plan. Marley's heart stopped. But he never filed it, Rowan added, because he needed your signature. A cold realization crawled up Marley's spine. Grant didn't want a divorce. He wanted a scapegoat. Before she could speak, another voice echoed from the ballroom entrance, stern, cold, unmistakably official. Marley Whitford, we need to speak with you again. Immediately. And to Stoas. And this time, the agents weren't alone. They had someone with them who could destroy everything Marley had left. Marley's breath froze as the agents approached again, 3 this time, not 2. And between them walked a woman in a navy suit with a steel posture and eyes that scanned like lasers. Assistant U.S. Attorney Dana Kessler. A name Marley knew only from news headlines, the kind tied to takedowns of corrupt CEOs and political giants. Rowan straightened instinctively beside Marley, as if preparing for battle all over again. Mrs. Whitford, Kessler said, her voice crisp. We need clarification regarding documents found in your husband's possession. You are not under arrest, but your cooperation is necessary. Marley's throat constricted. I already answered what I could. We've reviewed new evidence, Kessler replied, glancing pointedly at the envelope still trembling in Marley's hands. And we must ensure you were not complicit. Rowan stepped forward, tone controlled but unyielding. She wasn't. I'll represent her if needed. The agent to Kessler's right raised a brow. You're not her attorney. No, Rowan said, but mine will be here in 10 minutes. The agent opened his mouth to argue, but Kessler lifted a hand, silencing him. Her sharp gaze shifted to Marley. May I see what's in the envelope? Marley hesitated. The papers felt radioactive in her grip. These were left for me, Rowan added quietly. They implicate Grant. Not her. Kessler extended her hand. Let me confirm that. With trembling fingers, Marley handed over the documents. Kessler stepped aside, scanning each page with the precision of someone trained to dismantle lies for a living. Her eyes narrowed as she reached the falsified transfer form, Grant's trap. "This," she said, lifting the document, "is what we needed confirmation on." Marley felt her knees weaken. "I never signed anything. I never even saw that until tonight." "And that," Kessler replied, "may be the only thing that saves you." For the first time, Marley saw something soften in the prosecutor's expression. Not sympathy exactly, but recognition. Understanding. The look of a woman who'd seen other women destroyed by men like Grant. But before Kessler could say more, one of the agents leaned in and whispered in her ear, something urgent. Something that drained the color from Kessler's face. She turned to Marley again. "Mrs. Whitford, did you know your husband opened a bank account in your name?" Marley's heart lurched painfully. "What? No, I've never." "It contains over $800,000, Kessler said, her voice low. "All traceable to Whitford Capital's missing charity funds." Marley's head spun. 800,000? An account she'd never even heard of? Rowan swore under his breath. He tried to plant the entire scheme on her. Kessler nodded grimly. "This is textbook. Move stolen funds into an unsuspecting spouse's name, then claim ignorance when the audit hits." He was preparing an exit strategy. Marley pressed a hand to her stomach, nausea rising. I didn't know any of this." Kessler studied her, really studied her with the eyes of someone trained to read guilt like a second language. "She's telling the truth," Rowan said firmly. Finally, Kessler nodded. "We believe you, but we need one more confirmation." She glanced at the agents, lowering her voice. "Your husband gave a statement before he was escorted out. He claims you were aware of his condition." Marley blinked. "Condition?" Rowan's jaw tightened. Kessler continued. "Grant stated the pregnancy could not legally be linked to him, and implied you may have had a motive to hide the real father." Marley felt the words hit her like a physical blow. Her breath fractured. "No. He lied. He knew he..." She couldn't even finish. Shame and fury tangled in her chest. Kessler didn't flinch. "Mrs. Whitford, we're not charging you, but we need the truth. Do you know who the father is?" Marley's pulse roared in her ears. "Yes. Grant? It has to be Grant." Rowan looked at her with something complicated in his gaze: concern, protectiveness, and something else she couldn't name. Kessler folded the papers. "Then we'll need a DNA test." Tization. Marley froze. A DNA test? In front of all these people? With this much at stake? The prosecutor continued, "Not for your child, for you." Marley went still. "Me?" "Yes," Kessler said. "There is evidence your medical files were altered. We need to confirm your identity against the records your husband provided." The room seemed to tilt. Identity? Altered records? Confirm? Rowan reached for her shoulder just as her knees started to buckle. But before he touched her, Kessler added one final blow. "Mrs. Whitford, according to your husband's files, the woman listed as Marley Whitford isn't you." For a moment, Marley forgot how to breathe. Kessler's words echoed through her skull like a gunshot. "The woman listed as Marley Whitford isn't you." Everything inside her went numb. Rowan stepped forward instantly. "Explain, now." Kessler held Marley's gaze. "Your husband submitted medical records, financial paperwork, and identity documents to federal investigators. Those documents list a woman with your name, your birthday, but a different social security number, a different address history, a different everything." "I don't understand," Marley whispered. "How can that even?" "Identity substitution," Kessler replied. "A tactic used by white-collar criminals when they want to redirect blame. Grant created a second Marley Whitford on paper, a version of you who conveniently handled his financial accounts." Marley felt her stomach drop. "But why? Why go this far?" "To make you the perfect scapegoat," Rowan said quietly. "Criminals don't just erase evidence, they build new trails leading away from themselves." Kessler nodded. "Your husband planned to claim that the Marley Whitford in those files was you, that you opened the fraudulent bank account, that you funneled the charity money, that you misled him about the pregnancy to distract him." She paused. "He crafted an entire criminal persona, with your face." Marley's knees buckled. Rowan caught her elbow, grounding her with a steady hand. "I didn't know," Marley whispered. "I didn't know any of this. I didn't even know he..." He never intended you to know, Kessler said. You were supposed to take the fall if his schemes ever got exposed. Because, Min, those words hit harder than every insult, every betrayal, every cruel moment of the last year. Grant hadn't just abandoned her. He had engineered her destruction. Marley wrapped her arms around herself, trembling. I would never hurt anyone. I would never take money. I don't even know how to open an offshore account. We know, Kessler said, but to clear you, we need proof that you are actually you. Rowan stepped in, voice like steel. You'll get whatever you need. But she's done answering questions tonight. Kessler held his gaze. Normally, prosecutors didn't bend, but Rowan Blake wasn't a man people argued with lightly. Very well, Kessler said, but first one more question. Marley's chest tightened. Kessler continued, did you ever notice Grant taking your ID? Your passport? Your insurance card? Marley blinked. Then she froze. A memory surfaced, one she had brushed aside months ago. Grant waking up at 5 a.m. for a meeting. His suitcase half-packed, his expression cold, distant, and her wallet moved. I thought I misplaced it, Marley whispered. Rowan inhaled sharply. He stole it. Kessler nodded. He likely copied everything, built a shadow version of you, and used it to sign falsified approvals. Marley shook her head slowly, horror settling deep inside her. He didn't just cheat on me, he erased me. Rowan moved closer, not touching, but steady. No, he said quietly, he underestimated you. And for. Kessler gave Marley her card. We'll continue questioning tomorrow. For now, stay with someone you trust. Marley's eyes lifted to Rowan, stranger, ally, unexpected lifeline. He met her gaze with quiet certainty. You're coming with me. You're not spending tonight alone. Marley opened her mouth to protest, but exhaustion overtook her. She nodded, letting him lead her toward the exit, past the murmuring crowd, past the shattered remnants of her old life. But just as they reached the doors, a hotel staff member rushed toward them, breathless. Miss Whitford, there's someone waiting for you outside. Marley froze. Who? The staff member swallowed nervously. He said, he's family. Marley's heart pounded. She had no family in New York. And when she stepped outside into the snow, the man waiting for her was someone she never thought she'd see again, even in her nightmares. Snow swept across Fifth Avenue as Marley stepped outside, clutching Rowan's coat draped around her shoulders. The cold air stung her cheeks, grounding her after the chaos inside the ballroom. She expected maybe a distant relative, a lawyer, or even someone from Kessler's office. But not him. Never him. A man leaned against a black town car, breath fogging in the air. The street lamp lit his features, a face she once knew almost as well as her own. His jaw was rough with stubble, his eyes sharp and restless, his posture taut like a spring wound too tight. Liam Ward. Her ex-fiancé. Her ex-fiancé who disappeared 3 years ago without a goodbye. Her ex-fiancé who left her drowning in unanswered questions. Her ex-fiancé who had been the first person she ever trusted. Her stomach dropped so violently she thought she might collapse. His eyes flickered with something unreadable when he saw her. Marley. Irene. Today and. The sound of her name and his voice fractured something inside her. Rowan instinctively stepped forward, placing himself between them. You need to back up, Rowan said, low and controlled. Liam lifted his hands. I'm not here to cause trouble. I'm here because she's in danger. Marley's breath snagged. How do you even know what's happening to me? Liam's gaze softened. Because I've been trying to find you for months. Anger flared through her, sharp and dizzying. Find me? You walked out of my life without a word. You vanished. His expression twisted with regret. Because Grant made me disappear. Rowan stiffened. Explain. Now. Liam exhaled, hands shaking slightly. 3 years ago, Grant approached me, told me to end things with Marley, said she deserved someone who could advance her future, not a former foster kid turned struggling contractor. Marley felt her world tilt. Grant? What? That's impossible. If actual. He threatened my business, Liam continued quietly. Then my safety, then yours. His voice cracked. I believed him, so I left to keep you safe. Marley stared at him, her pulse roaring in her ears. Could that be true? Grant controlling, manipulating even then? Her chest tightened painfully. Why now? She whispered. Why come back now, after everything? Because I found something, Liam said. Something about your identity. Something worse than what the FBI knows. Ufterdies. Rowan narrowed his eyes. What did you find? Liam looked at Marley with a mixture of fear and apology. Your birth records. The originals. Marley froze. What about them? They don't match anything Grant submitted to the government. Her breath hitched. What are you saying? I'm saying, Liam replied slowly, that Grant didn't just steal your identity to create a criminal version of you. His voice dropped to a whisper. He was trying to erase the real you altogether. It's volition. Marley felt every bone in her body go cold. Rowan stepped closer, voice lethal. How much do you know? Enough to know Marley's life was rewritten 2 years ago, Liam said. Her employment history, her insurance accounts, even her driver's license renewal. Everything was altered in systems I shouldn't have been able to access. Marley's hands trembled violently. Why would he do that to me? Why erase who I am? Liam's jaw tightened. Because Grant didn't want a wife. He wanted a liability he could control. A wave of nausea surged up Marley's throat. Grant's cruelty had been deeper, wider, more calculated than she ever imagined. But Liam wasn't finished. He pulled a folded paper from his jacket and held it out. I came to warn you, he said. Because Grant's plan isn't just about fraud, or the pregnancy, or even you. Rowan took the paper first, scanning it. His face darkened instantly. Marley, he said, voice dropping, this isn't just identity manipulation. Marley swallowed hard. What is it? Rowan looked at her slowly, eyes filled with something closer to dread than anger. It's a death certificate. Marley's vision blurred. Whose? Rowan exhaled, steadying her shoulders as her knees wobbled. Yours. Marley stared at Rowan, waiting for him to say he was wrong, that she had misheard, that this was some hideous misunderstanding. But Rowan didn't look like a man who misspoke. He held the paper like it was a live grenade. Liam swallowed hard. Grant filed a death certificate for you 18 months ago. Marley blinked. Once, twice. The world dimmed at the edges. That's not possible, she whispered. I'm here. I've been here. Death certificates aren't filed to the public first, Rowan explained gently. They start in federal systems before trickling down to state records. If no one disputes them, they stay buried until someone needs them. Marley shook her head, panic rising like a wave. Why? Why would he do that? Why pretend I'm dead? Rowan exchanged a grim look with Liam. Because it allowed him to create a second identity for you, the criminal one, and if things got messy, the real Marley Whitford would legally no longer exist. Liam added quietly, he was planning to disappear, Marley, and take your identity, your recorded identity with him. Degresh. Her pulse hammered. So, what does that mean for me? Kessler's earlier words returned with chilling clarity. We need to confirm your identity. Now Marley understood why. Grant had not only stolen her life, he had written an ending to it. Marley felt the cold cut straight through Rowan's coat, through her skin, down to her bones. She wrapped her arms around herself, but nothing could hold her together in that moment. Liam took a small step toward her. I'm sorry. I should have come sooner. I should have. Rowan cut him off with a sharp glare. You left her vulnerable once. Don't do it again. Liam's jaw tightened, but he didn't argue. Marley stared at the death certificate in Rowan's hands. Her name, her birth date, a falsified place of death, signed by someone she didn't know, a notary stamp she'd never seen. It felt like looking at her own grave. Her voice cracked. He wanted to erase me. Rowan softened, his tone deep and steady. He wanted to control every version of you, but he didn't erase you, Marley. You're still here. She lifted her eyes to him, her heart splintering at the kindness she found there. Kindness she hadn't felt in years. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to trust the warmth in his voice. But fear held her hostage. What if the FBI doesn't believe me? She whispered. What if this makes everything worse? What if they think I'm the fake? Rowan stepped closer. Then I'll fight for you. To Daler. Liam added, voice cracking. We both will. But Marley didn't know if she could trust him again. Not after he'd abandoned her. Not after he'd let Grant tear her world apart without warning. Confusion tangled with fear until she felt physically dizzy. She pressed a hand over her stomach. The baby fluttered, a small, fragile reminder that she wasn't alone. She wasn't just fighting for herself. Rowan noticed the motion and lowered his voice. You need protection tonight. Real protection. Grant wasn't acting alone. Someone helped him file these documents. Someone who could still be out there. Liam nodded. He had partners, people who owed him favors. Rowan took a breath. I'll get you to a safe place. But before Marley could respond, a black SUV screeched to a stop at the curb. All three of them turned. The back door opened with a soft mechanical click. A woman stepped out, sharp dark coat, discreet earpiece, posture like a fortress. Marley Whitford? She asked, her voice calm but cold. You need to come with us, right now. Rowan stepped forward. Who are you? The woman lifted her credentials. Secret Service. Marley's heart nearly stopped. But the woman wasn't looking at Rowan. She wasn't looking at Liam. She was looking straight at Marley. You're under federal protection, she said. Your life is in immediate danger, and the threat is not your husband. And wealth. Snow flurried in frantic spirals as Marley stood frozen between Rowan and Liam, staring at the Secret Service agent, whose expression held no softness, no hesitation, only urgency. My life is in danger? Marley whispered. From who? Grant is already in custody. The agent shook her head. The threat isn't Grant Whitford. He's small compared to the people he was working with. That sentence dropped like a stone in Marley's stomach. Rowan stepped forward, calm but lethal. She isn't going anywhere until you tell us exactly who sent you. The agent met his stare without flinching. Director Hale. Liam cursed under his breath. Rowan's jaw clenched so hard Marley heard it. Director Hale. Head of the Financial Crimes Division. A man with enough power to bury cases or bury people. But why Marley? The agent continued. Director Hale wants her under federal protection immediately. We have reason to believe she was never the final target. She was the cover. And Forey. Rowan stiffened. Cover for what? The agent glanced at Marley. For whoever Grant's partners were trying to eliminate. Marley felt dizzy. You think someone used me? You were the perfect shield, the agent said. A woman with no public footprint, no powerful family, no high-profile job. If Grant had succeeded in erasing your identity, you would have vanished quietly with no one to question it. Marley's knees weakened. Rowan reached out instinctively, steadying her shoulders with warm, grounding hands. You're safe with me, he murmured. But the agent interrupted. She's not safe with anyone right now. There's been an attempted breach at her apartment. Someone was inside. Marley gasped, her pulse spiking. Inside? When? 10 minutes ago. Liam swore again. Rowan's face darkened. They were looking for something, the agent added. And they didn't care if they were seen. Rowan's voice dropped. She's not going back there. She won't, the agent said. We're taking her to a federal safe house. Marley's breath trembled. She didn't want to go. She didn't want to leave Rowan's side. He was the only steady thing she'd had all night. But she also didn't want to put him in more danger. Rowan, she whispered, maybe I should. I'm coming with you, he said immediately. That's not permitted, the agent replied. Rowan stepped forward, full CEO authority shifting into place. You can arrest me later, but she's not leaving with strangers after what she's been through. The agent hesitated. She clearly wasn't used to being challenged, but Rowan Blake wasn't a man easily dismissed. Finally, she nodded once. Fine. But you follow orders. Rowan slipped a reassuring hand along Marley's back. Always. Liam cleared his throat. I should come too. Rowan didn't look at him. No. Marley might need me. She needs stability, not unfinished history. One thing, damn. Hey, Liam snapped. I'm trying to protect her. Rowan finally turned, eyes sharp. Then stop complicating her life. Marley stepped between them weakly. Please, not now. I can't handle any more fighting. Her voice cracked, and both men immediately softened. The agent opened the SUV door. We have to go. Now. Marley took a shaky step forward, then stopped. Standing across the street, partially obscured by falling snow, was a man in a long black coat. He wasn't moving. He wasn't hiding. He was watching. And when the SUV headlights swept across his face, Marley saw something that made her heart seize. The man wasn't a stranger. She knew that face. She had seen it in a photograph hidden inside Grant's desk drawer. The man Grant once referred to as the partner I can never disappoint. And he was staring directly at Marley, For a moment, the world felt utterly silent. Snow drifted between Marley and the man across the street, soft and weightless, completely at odds with the way her stomach dropped. Rowan noticed her freeze. "Marley? What is it?" She couldn't look away. "That man? I've seen him before." Rowan followed her gaze, his posture shifting instantly into alertness. Liam stepped closer too, eyes narrowing. The stranger remained motionless under the street lamp, hands in his coat pockets, head angled just enough to show he wasn't trying to hide. He wanted to be seen. His presence wasn't an accident. Marley whispered. "He was in a photo I found in Grant's desk. Grant called him the partner I can never disappoint." Rowan tensed. "Name?" Marley swallowed. "Victor Halden." Rowan swore under his breath. Even the Secret Service agent stiffened. Liam muttered, "You've got to be kidding. That man's involved?" The agent stepped forward immediately, speaking into her earpiece. "This is Agent Torres, confirming visual on Victor Halden, possible connection to ongoing white-collar organized crime. Requesting immediate backup." But Victor didn't run. He didn't hide. He simply smiled. A small, chilling smile that told Marley he already expected them to react this way. Rowan stepped slightly in front of her, shielding her from Victor's line of sight. Liam followed suit from the other side, and for a strange, silent second, both men aligned in one instinct to protect her. The SUV engine hummed behind them, doors still open. "Get her inside," Agent Torres ordered, "now." But Marley couldn't move. Her feet felt glued to the icy pavement. Victor raised one gloved hand, not threatening, just acknowledging, as though greeting an old friend. Then he mouthed something across the street. Rowan noticed. "What is he saying?" Marley's voice came out faint, shaken. He said, "You were never the target." Rowan's eyes hardened. "Get in the car, now." "Is Bremen." Liam touched her arm. "Marley, go, we'll cover." Rowan grabbed Liam's collar and yanked him back. "You're not covering anything. Both of you stop," Marley whispered, panic climbing up her throat. "Please." But Victor had already begun walking toward them. Not fast, not slow. With the confidence of a man who feared nothing, not the Secret Service, not the FBI, not the chaos he'd orchestrated. Agent Torres drew her weapon. "Halt, hands where I can see them." Victor didn't listen. Torres shouted again, louder. Other agents nearby turned, scanning for threats. Rowan placed a firm hand on Marley's back and nudged her toward the SUV. "Get in, now." Marley finally moved, gripping the doorframe. But before she climbed in, Victor stopped walking. He reached into his coat. Torres yelled, "Don't." He pulled out a phone. Just a phone. He tapped the screen, and a notification chimed on Rowan's device at the same time. Rowan frowned and pulled it out. A single message. From an unknown number. Rowan's face drained of color. Marley whispered, "What does it say?" Rowan looked at her, fear flickering in his eyes for the first time that night. "It says, check her medical records, the real ones." Her heart slammed against her ribs. Then, another message popped up. Rowan's breath caught. "No." "What?" Marley begged. "What is it?" Rowan turned the screen so she could see. A photo of her ultrasound. One she had never taken. Dated 8 months earlier. But she was only 3 months pregnant. Liam swore violently. Torres grabbed Marley's arm before she collapsed. Rowan whispered, voice shaking with something darker than fear. "Marley." Victor saying, "This pregnancy didn't start when you think it did." The snowfall thickened, swallowing the streetlights in a soft white haze. But Marley felt none of the winter cold. Her entire body burned with confusion, horror, disbelief. She stared at the photo on Rowan's phone, her name, her date of birth, her patient ID, and an ultrasound image dated 8 months earlier. 8 months. But she was only 3 months pregnant. Her voice cracked. "That's not mine. That's not my baby." Rowan nodded slowly, jaw tight. "I know, but Victor wants you to believe otherwise." "No." Marley clutched her stomach instinctively, panic rising like a tidal wave. "Why would someone fabricate this? Why me?" Rowan took a step closer, lowering his voice. "Because it gives leverage. If someone can alter your pregnancy records, they can alter anything about your life." Liam muttered. "Grant didn't have the resources for this. But Victor, he does." Agent Torres tightened her grip on Marley's arm. We need to leave. Now, the longer we stand out here, the more exposed we are. But Marley couldn't move. Her legs felt like stone, her lungs tight. If they changed my pregnancy records, what else did they change? Rowan hesitated. And that hesitation chilled her more than the snow. Rowan. Her voice trembled. Tell me. He pressed his lips together, then finally admitted, your OBGYN records show 2 pregnancies, not 1. Marley's heart stopped. That's impossible. Kellen Rhodes had always told her this was her first. He never mentioned anything else. There were no symptoms, no memories, no medical history suggesting otherwise. Liam whispered. They erased the first one. Torres nodded grimly. Likely to cover whatever they were planning. If Grant and Victor had a blueprint involving you, removing any medical records that didn't fit the narrative would be the first step. Marley's throat burned. Removed? Why? Why erase something so huge? Rowan looked at her with an expression full of sorrow she didn't understand. Because the first pregnancy wasn't supposed to survive on paper. And the second one, he touched her gently between her shoulder blades, was supposed to replace it. I don't understand, Marley cried. Why me? Why would they do this to me? Torres answered. Because you were the perfect victim. Marley shook her head violently. No, I won't believe that. I won't believe my life was rewritten twice. Behind them, Victor remained motionless across the street, watching the unraveling like a spectator at a show he'd orchestrated himself. Torres shouted again, weapons still trained on him. Backup is 3 minutes out, don't move. Victor lifted his phone, tapped again. Another notification hit Rowan's screen. This time, a message. Ask her about the night she doesn't remember. Marley staggered back. What night? What is he talking about? Rowan grabbed her shoulders gently, steadying her. He's manipulating you. Don't let him. But then Liam's face changed. His eyes widened with recognition. Horror. Regret? Marley froze. Liam? What do you know? He didn't answer immediately. He looked at her with the expression of a man who'd run from something too long and could no longer escape it. Marley, he whispered, there was a night, one you don't remember, because you were drugged. The world tilted violently. Rowan's grip tightened. Drugged? By who? Liam swallowed. By someone Grant hired 2 years ago, the same night your identity records changed. Pieces, SS. 2 says, SS. Marley felt the scream rising in her throat, but it never reached her lips. Because Victor finally spoke, his voice calm, cold, and clear across the snowy street. Tell her the truth, Liam. Torres shouted, shut up. But Victor ignored her, eyes locked on Marley. You weren't the only one drugged that night, he said. Liam flinched. Marley's heart cracked open. Ask Liam, Victor continued. Who was with you when you conceived the first pregnancy? Dizziness. The snowstorm blurred the world into white streaks, but Marley saw everything with painful clarity. Liam's face draining of color, Rowan stepping closer with quiet fury, Agent Torres tightening her grip on her weapon, and Victor Halden watching with the confidence of a man who already knew the ending of the story. Marley's voice trembled. Liam. What is he talking about? What night? Liam swallowed hard, breathing fast, like someone drowning in guilt. Marley, I never wanted you to find out like this. Rowan snapped. Find out what, Liam? Liam closed his eyes. 2 years ago, Grant invited me to a dinner, said he wanted to clear the air, that he regretted pushing me out of your life. He let out a shaking breath. I shouldn't have gone, but I missed you. I wanted closure. Marley stared at him, stunned. You saw Grant? Behind my back? Yes, Liam whispered. And that night, he switched our drinks. I remember feeling off heavy, groggy. The next thing I knew, hours had passed. Rowan's jaw tightened. You were drugged. Liam nodded. Shame burned across his face. When I woke up, I was in a hotel suite, and Marley's chest constricted as cold terror crawled down her spine. Rowan stepped in front of her. Stop. Choose your next words carefully. Liam looked directly at Marley, eyes glassy with remorse. You were there too. Unconscious. Marley felt the ground tilt beneath her. No, she whispered. No, I was never. You don't remember because Grant made sure you wouldn't, Liam said. He hired someone connected to Victor, to alter your medical records afterward, and then he filed that death certificate to bury everything. Agent Torres cursed quietly. This is bigger than identity theft. This is damn near trafficking. Rowan's voice lowered to something dangerously calm. Touch her again, and I'll end you. I never touched her. Liam's voice cracked. I swear on my life I didn't know what was happening. I woke up fully clothed on the other side of the suite. I never laid a hand on her. Marley's breath came in shallow bursts. Then why is Victor saying? Because, Liam said, voice breaking, the first pregnancy wasn't between you and Grant, but it wasn't between us either. Rowan froze. So did Torres. Marley's heartbeat crashed in her ears. Victor's voice cut the silence like a knife. Liam isn't lying. He wasn't the father. Marley stared at Victor, horror and confusion twisting her insides. Then who? Victor smiled. That depends. Which version of you are we talking about? Rowan snapped. Torres, call for backup now. But Victor raised his hands slightly, not in surrender, but in amusement. Relax. I'm not here to harm her. I'm here because she's owed the truth. Marley's entire body trembled. Tell me, right now, what happened to me that night? Victor stepped forward exactly one pace, enough for the snow to reveal the sharp lines of his face. That night, he said calmly, Grant sold someone access to you. Marley's stomach heaved. No, Rowan breathed, voice raw with rage. Don't you dare, Victor continued, but the buyer backed out. And Grant panicked. The deal collapsed, and someone else stepped in to clean the mess. Marley felt faint. Who stepped in? Victor's smile widened, cold as ice. The same person who paid to erase your identity. The same person who made sure you'd never remember the truth. Torres raised her weapon, shouting, Stop talking. But Victor didn't stop. His eyes locked on Marley with terrifying certainty. Marley, he said softly, the man who rewrote your life wasn't Grant. The world held its breath. It was someone you trust right now. Exartu. Thank you for watching. Marley felt her pulse roaring in her ears, drowning out the traffic, the wind, the sirens approaching in the distance. Someone she trusts. That sentence hollowed her from the inside out. She looked instinctively to Rowan, solid, unshaken, jaw clenched in fury, and then to Liam, who stood rigid, regret dripping from every line of his body. No, Marley whispered. No, I don't believe you. Victor's eyes glittered. You will. Thank you. Rowan stepped forward, putting himself squarely between Marley and Victor. Say one more word to her, and you won't leave this sidewalk standing. But Victor wasn't intimidated. He tilted his head, studying Rowan with unsettling calm. Funny. You're so protective of her. Yet you never told her your connection to Grant. Marley froze. What connection? Rowan didn't move, didn't blink, but something flickered in his eyes. Something Marley had never seen in him. Doubt. Liam stepped closer to her. Marley, listen, Rowan isn't your enemy. But Victor chuckled softly. Isn't he? Tell her, Mr. Blake. Tell her why you knew so much about Grant's access logs. About the financial trails. About her medical files. Rowan's silence was too loud. Marley felt the first crack of fear open in her chest. Rowan, what is he talking about? Rowan finally spoke, voice low. Controlled. Painful. Before Grant married you, Whitford Capital tried to merge with Mercer Group. My company. He swallowed hard. Grant sabotaged the deal. Cost us millions. So yes, I've been tracking his movements for years, but not you. Never you. Victor smirked. Half a truth. How noble. Marley shook her head. Rowan wouldn't hurt me. Oh? And yet he erased your identity. Rowan spun toward Victor. That's a lie. But Victor only raised his brows. Is it? Marley, ask him this. How did Mercer Group get access to your medical records before the FBI did? Rowan's eyes widened. Marley's breath hitched. Rowan? I requested them, Rowan finally admitted. After you collapsed, after Grant humiliated you, I needed to know if you were safe, if the pregnancy was compromised. Victor clapped slowly, mocking. And through that request, you triggered the audit that exposed her identity discrepancies. The same audit Grant relied on to finalize her erasure. Marley felt cold all over. Rowan, did you help him? Rowan stepped toward her immediately, his voice breaking. No, Marley, look at me. I was trying to protect you. Victor's voice sliced the air again. Protect her? Or control the narrative before Grant's crimes destroyed your company's ties to his? Rowan flinched just slightly, but enough to send a shard of fear through Marley's spine. Liam snapped, Marley, don't listen to him. Victor plays with truth like a weapon. And, das Cumbered. But he didn't lie about the night I was drugged, Marley whispered. He didn't lie about the death certificate. Liam fell silent. Torres shouted into her radio, back up in 30 seconds, prepare to detain Victor Halden. But Victor didn't run, didn't hide. He simply smiled at Marley, soft and chilling. You want the truth? He asked. The real truth? Ask Rowan where he was the night your first pregnancy disappeared. Rowan's breath caught. Marley felt the ground vanish beneath her. Rowan? His face changed pain, guilt, and something darker, tightening his expression. Marley, he said, voice breaking for the first time, you need to trust me. Victor is twisting everything. But Victor took one step backward into the shadows, just as backup vehicles screeched onto the street. The truth is coming, he said calmly. And when it does, his eyes locked onto Marley's. You'll learn who truly tried to save you and who tried to own you. Torres shouted, hands up, now. Two. Victor lifted his hands slowly. But his last words cut through the chaos like a blade. Ask Rowan why he was the first person notified when your identity was erased. Sirens painted the snow blue and red as federal agents swarmed the street. Victor Halden was forced face down against the hood of a cruiser, wrists cuffed behind him. But even then, with boots pressing into his spine and an agent reading him his rights, Victor smiled up at Marley slow, knowing, poisonous. Marley turned away. She couldn't bear to look at the man who'd treated her life like a chess piece. Agent Torres approached. He's done. We have enough to connect Victor to multiple identity operations. You're safe now. But safety still felt distant, foggy, fragile, because Victor's last accusation lingered in the air. Ask Rowan why he was the first person notified when your identity was erased. Marley turned to Rowan. The man who had protected her, fought for her, stood between her and danger without hesitation. The man whose presence had become a strange, unexpected refuge. Rowan, she whispered, tell me the truth. Why were you notified? He inhaled, slow and pained. Because I put a monitor on your records. Marley's stomach twisted. Why? Because after our company's deal fell apart, Rowan said, voice low, Grant tried to get close to every executive who voted against him, including me. He used you, Marley. He talked about you. He bragged about controlling every woman in his life. Something about the way he spoke, it bothered me. I didn't know you then, but I didn't trust him. He paused. So I flagged your name, just in case. Marley swallowed. Just in case. What? In case he hurt you. The world seemed to stop. Rowan continued, voice barely above a breath. I didn't erase your identity. I didn't know what he planned. But the moment the flag triggered, I knew you were in danger. Liam exhaled shakily. He's telling the truth, Marley. Agent Torres added, we verified timestamps. Rowan's alert went off hours after Grant filed the false death certificate. Marley pressed a trembling hand to her mouth. The fear that had nearly consumed her cracked, splintered, then collapsed under something gentler. Relief. Rowan stepped closer. I should have told you earlier, but I didn't want to overwhelm you. And I didn't want you to think I was watching you for the wrong reasons. Marley's voice wavered. Then why were you watching me? Rowan's eyes softened in a way that made her heart stutter. Because the first time I saw you 3 years ago at an event you designed, you saved a collapsing stage with nothing but a rope in your bare hands. You didn't panic. You didn't care who was watching. You just helped. I never forgot that. Her breath caught. You remembered me. I remembered everything. Before she could respond, Torres approached again. Marley, Victor, and Grant's records match. You were targeted because you were easy to isolate, but you're cleared, completely. She smiled, rare and sincere. You're free. The word free felt unreal. Grant was facing decades in prison. Victor was going away for life. Her real name was restored in every federal system. Rowan held out a steady hand. Let me take you somewhere warm. Somewhere safe. Tonight is the end of what was done to you. Marley looked at him, and for the first time in years, she felt something like hope bloom inside her chest. "I'd like that," she whispered. A soft snowfall settled around them as Rowan helped her into the SUV, his hand never leaving hers. She wasn't trembling anymore. For once, she wasn't running. She was rising. As the door closed, Agent Torres's radio crackled with a final update. "Be advised. Victor Haldon is demanding to speak to Marley Whitford. He says he has one last name to give her." Torres frowned. "Whose name?" "Static." "Then, the father." Marley froze, and Rowan's hand tightened around hers because this final truth would change everything again. The SUV door had barely closed when Agent Torres turned toward Marley, her expression unusually grave. "Victor is insisting," she said quietly. "He claims the father's name will clear you and expose the last piece of the operation." Rowan's grip tightened around Marley's hand. "She doesn't need more pain tonight." But Marley shook her head softly. "I need the truth." Torres nodded and stepped aside as two agents hauled Victor closer, his hands cuffed, but his posture still disturbingly composed. Snow dusted his shoulders like frost on stone. He glanced at Marley, eyes sharp as a blade. "Relax. You're safe now. I owe you one last truth." "Then say it," Rowan snapped. Victor's gaze slid toward Rowan with a smirk. "Oh, you'll want to hear this too." Torres raised a warning hand. "Make it fast." Victor inhaled once. The first pregnancy wasn't viable. Grant knew. He had medical confirmation before Marley ever did. He erased the record to hide his own infertility. But the second pregnancy, the real child, was protected by someone else. Marley's heart pounded. Protected by who? Victor tilted his head. By the man who made sure Grant couldn't sell you. The man who bought that night not to harm you, but to save you. Rowan stiffened. "Enough riddles." Victor smiled. "The father is the one who stopped Grant's plan when it began." Silence fractured the air. And then Victor said the name. Rowan Blake. The world dropped out from under Marley. Rowan stepped back as if struck. "That's a lie." Victor shrugged. "The night she was drugged, you paid the handler to pull her out of the operation. Grant had planned to sell her to an offshore buyer. But Rowan intercepted the transfer, paid triple to stop the deal. He never touched her. He just saved her. And he didn't know she was pregnant." Marley's breath caught. "Rowan, is this true?" Rowan's voice broke. "I tried to keep you safe. I didn't know who you were. I only knew Grant was hurting someone, and I couldn't let it happen." His eyes glistened. "I didn't know the consequences." Victor continued. "Rowan moved you from the suite to a secure room and left before you woke. No one touched you afterward. The child is yours. Yours alone." Torres stepped in. "We confirmed genetic timestamps. Victor isn't lying. Rowan didn't father the baby. He protected you." Marley's knees buckled in relief. Rowan caught her gently. Her tears spilled not from fear this time, but release, freedom. Grant had never owned her. Victor had never controlled her. Her child was safe, untouched by the darkness men tried to force into her past. Rowan whispered, voice raw. "I'm sorry you learned it like this, but I'd do it again. 1,000 times." Marley looked up at him, heart swelling with something she hadn't felt in years' trust. Victor was dragged away, finally silent. Torres exhaled. "This case is closed. Marley Whitford is cleared of all suspicion and assigned temporary federal protection until the sentencing hearing." The snow eased to a gentle drift as Rowan helped Marley into the warmth of the SUV again. She leaned her head on his shoulder, feeling safety for the first time in years. "Rowan," she whispered. "Yes? What happens now?" Rowan turned to her, brushing a stray tear from her cheek. "Now," he said softly, "you get to live the life they tried to steal. And if you'll let me, I'd like to be part of that life." Marley's breath caught. Her answer came not in words, but in the way she reached for his hand, steady, sure, choosing him. 6 months later, Marley stood in a sunlit garden overlooking Manhattan, wearing a soft ivory dress, her newborn daughter asleep against her chest. Rowan Blake stood beside her, her protector, her partner, her future. Justice had been served. Grant was sentenced. Victor disappeared into life imprisonment. Marley's identity was restored. Her name was hers again, and her heart finally was too. But as she kissed Rowan under the spring blossoms, a letter arrived at the safe house, from a woman claiming to know Marley's mother. "So, That's how the story finally closes. And if you're still here with me right now, my friend, then something in Marley's journey must have touched your heart in a way you maybe didn't expect. Maybe it reminded you that life can break us, but it can also rebuild us into someone stronger, kinder, and more awake than before. This story teaches us that healing isn't loud. It happens quietly when we choose ourselves after years of choosing the wrong people, when we walk away from what hurts, even if our voice shakes. You know, Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." What tried to destroy Marley became the very path that set her free. And that happens in real life too. Sometimes, the deepest betrayal is the doorway to the life we were meant to live. So if you're carrying pain tonight, don't forget you're still moving, still growing, still here. And that matters. If this story reached you, even a little, give it a like, share it with someone who might need it, and subscribe so we can keep walking through these stories together. You're not alone. Not here. Not ever.